For this project, we were tasked with making an interactive comic with the topic of quantum entanglement. The first thing we did was research quantum entanglement and become familiar with what it is. We wanted to be able to share some of the main principles of quantum entanglement without having to get into the complicated science and surrounding principles of quantum mechanics. This meant that we needed a solid understanding of it. We had to know enough to be able to simplify the concepts.
At our first group meeting, we discussed what we had learned about quantum entanglement and started to brainstorm ideas of what we wanted our comic to be about. We started to form some basic ideas on how we could demonstrate quantum entanglement in a more easy to understand way. Our main working idea was a Space Indiana Jones, where the player has to solve puzzles that have to do with quantum entanglement to get to the end of some sort of temple.
We met again the next week and had a call with our professor to discuss our ideas and the direction we should go moving forward. Based on that call, we did some more research and highlighted some of the main concepts that we wanted to cover. We then used those concepts to start to frame out our story and comic idea. We shifted our story to follow an astronaut/scientist who is mysteriously sent to a planet and has to solve puzzles using quantum entanglement. By solving these puzzles, he collects pieces to finish assembling a quantum communicator device.
The next step was to work on a storyboard and fully flesh out our idea. We worked on how we wanted our comic to flow, how we wanted the player to experience it, what information we wanted to include, and how to provide examples of quantum entanglement in simplified ways. Then it was time to work on the actual comic. We had art to draw, animations to make, puzzles to create, and code to write. During this stage, our group ran into some problems, which included having a group member leave the project. Because of this, we had to adapt and make some edits to the comic to account for what was now missing. We each had to do some extra work, but we split up the adjustments and got them done quickly, allowing us to largely stick to our schedule.
Our final adjustments majorly included making the comic flow correctly now that we had a little extra work and not a lot of time to work on the missing pieces. Here are our various individual contributions to our project and a few details about them. We decided that the quantum entangler should be broken up into multiple scripts to be applied to our separate puzzles individually, as we needed specific mechanics to come out of this quantum entangler device, and we didn't want one script to be too long or too complicated that it caused bugs or issues later on in the process. Here we have the user manual that is associated with the quantum entangler inside the story of the comic. This manual is used to immerse the player in the world that we have built inside this comic to show the player how the quantum entangler would be used, and therefore to kind of give them an idea of what they are supposed to do inside each puzzle.
Here we have the Unity scene showing the first scene of the comic. With a few clicks, we get the secondary, and then the third showing the interactive puzzle. A short little instructions list saying left click to entangle, right to disentangle, with a big red X to get rid of it, but I'm going to keep it there. If we click these two, and a simple push, you can see that by pushing one, the other moves. If I come over here, push this down, this pushes back up, but there's a bed in the way. So it's better to show it. There we go. And get that thing moving. And the access to it, or the goal is to access the missing part, which is over here, which of course, you'll have to use the mechanics of the game to access it, to move things out of the way. So to push things out of the way, we have to inadvertently be away from it to push, or just be big strong man. Then once we can actually get in, collect the key, we can scroll down, see the final comic, and then a continue button to lead us back to the main screen.
On here is a script that flips the animation when clicked. Each spinner on the controller is connected to one of the spinners on the lock of the vault, which is spinning the opposite way. A lock combo checker script is attached to an object in the scene. It checks to see if the combo is correct after each flip. When the combo is correct, the vault can be opened and the player may return to the comic page where the final panel is now revealed.
This puzzle is based off of von Neumann entropy, stating that as more possible outcomes are revealed, the more entropy there is, which results in less information. During some of our earliest brainstorming for this comic, we knew we wanted to make a puzzle with some kind of entropy timer, and our original ideas had a sort of dark room with a flashlight concept, where the player would need to use their flashlight to view areas on the level, but as time went on, those areas would be covered, but still accessible. After some consideration, we ended on the final concept of the puzzle being like a classic matching game using television screens and a large entropy meter at the top. As the meter increases over time, the screens begin to black out, removing the player's ability to see the information on the screen, but they are still interactable and therefore the player can still create matches. If the meter fills out before the player can finish all the matches, they have the option to restart from the beginning with the screens being reshuffled, so the shapes are not all in the same spots. As you can see, once you reach 6 matches, the puzzle kicks you back out to the comic page and reveals the very last panel with the main character grabbing an object off of a table, and you are able to go back to the main screen, and the lab puzzle is now complete. Here is the comms room page. The first panel is our main character walking into the comms room after having completed all of the other puzzles and gaining all of the objects. He puts all of the objects into the device in the middle that has obvious spots for each of the items. Then he sits down and is confused and somewhat surprised that the screen automatically connects him to a message that plays out saying congratulations, and he is the 1000th version of himself to complete his quantum communicator.
Our final animation shows that the person who set up the puzzles is an alternate version of Dr. Jimothy. The animation explains to the player that they are now in possession of a quantum communicator capable of instantaneous communication over great distances, all possible through quantum entanglement. The alternate explains that the player has actually been using quantum entanglement this whole time in the solving of the puzzles. It is revealed that the alternate is trying to commercialize the quantum communicator and be the richest and most important person in all the universes. To make this animation, I drew the backgrounds and created the whiteboard portion by using rotoscope techniques. I then used the Puppet Pin tool in Adobe After Effects to have the alternate Jimothy move around in the intro and outro of the video.